we're back on 10 Count. Steve Kim joined by Michael Baca of UCN Live and the editor of Ring Magazine, Doug Fischer. Guys, 2017 is basically over now. The year went very fast.
That went fast,
yeah. It seems to go faster every year. Mike, what stood out to you? What are some of your memories of this past year?
Well, first of all, I think it went by so fast because we were having fun, because it was a great year.
A lot of good matchups.
A lot of things happened. A lot of fights happened. Big fights.
From the very start, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
January and February. We've
it all
already
started
forgotten about
It all started with the unification between James DeGale and Badou Jack, and it was a great fight.
Was that in January?
Yes,
it was in January. It all started then.
And there was also Carl Frampton rematch with Leo Santa Cruz.
Yes.
Yeah.
My
Garcia.
boy Leo came back and won it.
He did.
He destroyed him that time. This time he destroyed him.
Shit.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you forget that.
That's yeah. It started off well.
To go back, reflecting on the year, the first thing that comes to mind, and this kind of surprises me considering Canelo Golovkin happened, it's Joshua-Klitschko.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that fight, that's the one fight this year that I go back and rewatch kind of regularly.
That one?
Really?
Huh.
That fight, it was everything I wanted in a heavyweight fight, and we haven't had a fight like that in such a long time. I think it should be fight of the year when it's all said and done. I think the networks will agree, considering they both have a little piece of it.
Yeah.
You know what
That's called wanting to be in the Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, but
yeah.
For me, that fight was 3 dramatic rounds.
Oh, sure.
It was the rounds where they traded knockdowns in round 11, where Joshua put away a very stubborn and defiant future Hall of Famer, Vladimir Klitschko, the old lion passing the torch to the young lion. It's really, Joshua's youth, to me, is one of the storylines for 2017. Because when I look at the biggest ticket sellers, Anthony Joshua, who just turned 28, and Canelo Alvarez, who's still 27, and I look at some of the hottest fighters, like the Charlo twins, Jermell and Jamal Charlo, who made a lot of noise this year with knockouts and their bombastic post-fight interviews. They're 27. That's what stood out to me, is that we're looking at the next generation right now. They are making statements in the ring, and their future is very bright, and that's great for the sport of boxing going into 2018, 2019.
You know what I loved about Joshua-Klitschko, and it's a continuing storyline and something we should press for. Both fighters had exclusive contracts with networks. They worked it out.
Yeah.
We need
Fought
more,
on both networks,
we
right?
need more of that type of cooperation from every entity. I've talked to Steven Espinoza, and that should be a template for further situations. I don't think we should ever have a fight that does not happen because of alliances or network contracts.
Right.
Figure it out. Golovkin-Canelo, I thought, was a watershed moment for the sport, and beyond that, Doug, the fight actually delivered.
It sure
was
did.
good. It was competitive. It was a compelling 12-round middleweight fight. Now, it wasn't Hagler-Hearns, like some folks were hoping. It wasn't even Hagler-Leonard, although the scoring controversy was reminiscent of that middleweight championship 30 years ago. It was more like, it was kind of like Hagler-Duran, where it was like, two good technical boxer punchers in there who maybe gave each other a little bit too much respect. The only difference is that Hagler got a close nod after 15 rounds, and Golovkin was denied that. But it wasn't like a robbery type situation, because it was a draw, so he remains unbeaten, and he got to keep his middleweight titles that he brought into that contest, and his stature grew even more. The Golovkin train has been moving along and the bandwagon is filled up with each fight. It went off the charts with that weekend, that Mexican Independence Day weekend in Las Vegas. The Triple G gear had never sold like that going into the fight. And even after the fight, there were a lot of folks who were Canelo fans that were wearing the Triple G hats and Jordan brand.
The other big storyline to me is ESPN. I mean, for literally 30 years, they ignored the sport of boxing.
Or they weren't all in.
Yeah, they weren't all in.
Yeah.
They're all in now.
Yeah, they sure are.
They are, and I think that's a big storyline, that they are now committed to the sport, actually treating it like a real sport. And 2017 to me will be known as a year we generally got the fights that we wanted. And the question I have, will that continue in 2018?
I sure hope so. I mean, it's set up to. Like, everything in 2017 should parlay into 2018 nicely because everybody has options, it seems like. I mean, there's networks are showing fights. People are going over to different countries to fight each other. I mean, we'll see. I'm always a pessimist when it comes to this stuff.
Like every other hardcore fan out there.
Yeah.
If you go to Twitter, it's been a miserable year, and 2018 is going to suck.
Part of the reason why, and I'm glad you brought that up, is another thing that I realized thinking about it right now in 2017 was the commissions of boxing playing a role in the sport and how much it influences stuff. Like, there's been plenty of bad referee stoppages this year.
Yeah.
There's been bad scorecards this
A lot
year.
of bad scorecards.
And is there anything...
That's worldwide.
Is there anything being done about it?
Yeah, I think there'll be more done about it because in this social media age, there's just more heat on the commissions. People complain about it, and it gets focused where it belongs, you know, to those who are involved in the selection process of these officials who were putting out poor scorecards or making bad decisions in the ring. But back to the original point of Steve's question, I think we are going to continue to see marquee matchups in 2018 for the simple fact that boxing is a business as much as it is a sport, and a lot of entities made good money. There's been good ratings. There have been a lot of people buying tickets. There's been money generated, and the people within the industry want to make just as much money in 2018 as they did in 2017. And I think a factor is really sort of the gradual decline of the PBC. Was it early 2015 when the PBC was launched, and they were doing time buys, and so there was all this Al Heyman advised talent that was just fighting each other, but it wasn't like the best matchups within the PBC. And now that they don't have those time buy networks anymore, they're going across the street like Daniel Jacobs did, or they're signing with other promoters like Carl Frampton did, and the other folks under that PBC banner are looking around or maybe putting some pressure on their advisor or whoever's managing their careers and saying, hey, I want to fight some of these top fighters that are under contract with other promoters, or I want to fight on some other networks because this is my prime and my time is now. Yeah,
a couple other notes before we wrap this up. Mayweather-McGregor, love it or leave it. A lot of people loved it, and it was actually, I thought, it gave a boost in terms of the profile of boxing.
It didn't hurt.
And by the way, Dana White, 3 years ago, said boxing's a dead old man sport. Now he wants to get involved. And one other note, and speaking of 2017, which is going to affect next year, I think we got to give a tip of the cap to the World Boxing Super Series. I was very skeptical. When it was first formulated and it was first announced, I said there's no one's going to be involved. It's not going to be a great tournament. It's going to be like the NIT. But you know what? It actually works. Now, the only downfall, they didn't have a real television deal. But when you already have fights like Murat Gassiev and Junior Dorticos on the calendar, and I think this fight between the two British super middleweights,
and Eubank,
right, that's a big event. Yes. And you got to give a tip of the cap to that. So, all right, so that's our 2017 overview. Should be another fun year of boxing in 2018. On behalf of Doug Fischer and Michael Baca, this is Steve Kim saying goodbye, everybody.